Welcome to part 2 of my Acceleracers collectible card game series, where we take a look at all 86 of the vehicles in the game and rank them according to base stats and adjusted rankings with how they are actually played in the game. Last time we covered the Metal Maniacs as well as the basic rules for how to rank these cars. And here we got base stat rankings and we got adjusted. I went over these in depth for the first video, so by all means take a look at that video in the description. But for those who understand the rankings, or for those who just want to only see the Teku portion, we will be moving straight into that. So last time again we took care of the Metal Maniacs. Here are their rankings once again, and so we'll now move into the Teku. Now base stats wise, High Voltage proves to be the worst Teku car, at least because of its two detrimental values of 2. Sure, it may have that special ability, but in base stats, again, we don't consider special abilities. We look at solely what their SPP values, their terrain bonuses, and their mod ability have to tell us. And so because it has two detrimental values of 2, good luck trying to get through a 6, 7, or 8 escape value realm with this. It's way far in the back. Followed closely by Spectite. Well, I guess Spectite's higher. So after Spectite, we see an increase in stats, moving up with Battle Spec beating Baseline due to that performance value. Again, there are 9 performance realms, 8 power realms, and 8 speed realms. So if it has a higher performance value and the rest of the stats are the same, then that is the better vehicle. Moving on to Nightlife, this one I feel is going to be the least popular decision in my ranking list. But more on that in adjusted, to be honest. But while its total SPPs is 11, the detriment value of 2 I would say is far too risky for base stats and especially in competitive play. Because essentially, if you're stuck in a high value realm, you're going to be spending all of your cards to try and boost that performance, that power stat. And so even if you have cards that can buff both speed and power, or power and performance, or even all 3, at that point you're just going to be buffing a stat that doesn't need to be buffed much. I mean, if you're in a realm where 5 is the escape speed value and you've buffed it to 6 just to buff its power value earlier, it's kind of a useless buff. And so essentially you're just spending way too much card usage on one individual card, as compared to spreading them out over a variety of cards that could actually use them in multiple situations. And so after we have these 2 detriment values, we see the only true tie in the game as Hyper Battle Spec and Hyper Baseline are stat-wise the exact same vehicle. But I have placed Hyper Baseline higher, just because I prefer this artwork. It is way cooler in my opinion. Plus Hyper Battle Specs, as much as I loved the original Battle Spec, this Hyper version just looks wrong. It's not what Battle Spec is supposed to look like. So further down we see many cars ahead of others because they have terrain bonuses with increasing percentages. For example, we see down here Reverb versus Hyper Power Rage. Reverb has that 20% paved terrain bonus. It covers of course 20% of the realms. Whereas the Sand for Hyper Power Rage is only 16% of all realms. Meanwhile, Hyper Reverb is still behind Synchro due to the 3 detriment value and the performance. As for Synchro and Hyper Chicane, while they have the same terrain percentages, so stat-wise they would seem pretty much identical, same SPP, same mod ability, same terrain percentage, I decided to use my adjusted ranking analysis in order to determine that Hyper Chicane is actually better than Synchro, and we will look at that in the next slide. Meanwhile, no surprise here, Hyper Synchro is the absolute best vehicle for the Teku, with a 744 dual mod ability and both terrain bonuses giving it 40% chance of getting a terrain bonus. I mean, you cannot beat this vehicle. It is way too good. So moving on, here's essentially how we take a look at the adjusted rankings when 2 cars are pretty even in stats, but we want to not just take into account generic terrain percentages, because sometimes that terrain percentage is not actually a good way to gauge the vehicle. So in this case what we do is we take both vehicles, put them through every single realm, and compare how many realm advantages a vehicle may have, how many instant wins it may have, and so on and so forth. So here for Synchro, I have given its realm advantages an orange designation. For Hyper Chicane, I've given it a light blue designation. For realms that they both win, I've given it purple, and for, well, you'll see. So in the Swamp realm, both of them are tied. And same for the Canyon realm. But when we get to the Junk realm, Hyper Chicane, thanks to its paved terrain bonus, is able to instantly win. Not only that, because Synchro cannot advance either, that means that Hyper Chicane has a realm advantage. And so I have designated this with a dark blue line. When we move on to the Storm realm, once again they are tied. Same going into the Fog realm. And when we go into the Ice realm, they both instantly win this realm, so I've designated it with a purple border. They're tied in the Wind realm. Both of them win in the Chrome realm, and here's where I'm talking about that terrain bonus. Synchro may have the Slick terrain bonus, which would technically help it in the Chrome realm, but since its escape value is 6 and Synchro's speed value is already 6, it instantly wins, so there's really no reason for that terrain bonus to even come into play here. Next we have the Cavern realm, where both vehicles are tied. Same for the Water realm. Once again, same for the Cliffside realm. But of course in the Labyrinth realm, Synchro has a realm advantage, thanks to its terrain bonus. In the Metro realm, Hyper Chicane has a realm advantage, thanks to its terrain bonus. The two are tied going into the Pipeline realm. The Reactor realm, Synchro has a realm advantage. Both of them instantly win the Ruins realm. Cosmic realm, they're tied. Lava realm, they're tied. Solar realm, they both instantly win, and once again, Hyper Chicane has a terrain bonus here, but it doesn't help it because it already instantly wins. As soon as it hits that realm, next turn it's moving through. Blizzard realm, thanks to that Slick terrain bonus, Synchro has an advantage. Cybergrid realm, the paved terrain bonus gives Hyper Chicane an advantage. The two are tied going into the Monument realm, tied in the Desert realm, tied in the Warped realm, and both of them instantly win the Micro realm. So here's essentially what I do. I break it down, give it a little tick mark for each one going alongside. So when they tie, they get a T. When one wins, when one gets a realm advantage, they get a 1. And when one doesn't get a realm advantage in the same round, they get a 0. Meanwhile, if it is also a win, I give the parentheses the designated 1, that's your realm advantage, and of course it has W for a win, and so you see they tie in the wins. This is just one way to kind of tick mark them. You can use your own tick marks or any kind of way to do that, but essentially the results will end up the same, that both of these have tie wins in 5 realms. Synchro has 3 specific realm advantages that Hyper Chicane doesn't, and Hyper Chicane has 3 specific realm advantages that Synchro does not, but one of those is an extra win, and so Hyper Chicane is just fractionally better than Synchro, but of course it is situational, so I would highly recommend running both in your deck if possible. But this is just the way to say statistically, Hyper Chicane is a bit better than Synchro. As for the adjusted rankings, of note is Spectite over Battle Spec and Baseline. While Spectite's ability is rather weak, its 3 terrain bonuses give it a 44% chance of buffing its stats to 344, and this is the highest terrain bonus chance in the game. Meanwhile, I have kept Hyper High Voltage's ranking over Spectite for its stats, but especially its ability to keep shift cards, normally discarded after each realm, throughout all the realms. This is praiseworthy, more so regarding the total stat ranking list of all 86 cards, but not to an extent of beating Nightlife's higher stats. As with Nightlife, the detriment value of 2 is just too risky for competitive play, and that's the reason why all of these are still back here. Sure, one can use Wrong Way to boost each of Hyper High Voltage's stats by 3, but this requires 5 action points, which itself requires 2 team bonuses, having 2 cards each from 2 matching racing teams in play at once. And again, unless you're playing Tabletop Simulator, that is a ghost rare, so it's going to be pretty rare to even have that in your deck to begin with. So it's far better to play cards that can instantly win realms without the need for a ghost rare shift card. Next we see Hyper Spectite advancing past Hyper Battle Spec, Hyper Baseline, and Battle Spec 2. As with its original counterpart, Hyper Spectite has a 44% chance of having 444 stats. Meanwhile, its ability has been improved to regain any mod, but its stats are still far off the pace of Drift Tech. Next we see Hyperdrift Tech behind Power Rage, because Power Rage's improved speed and performance stats make it a far better car overall. That said, if you expect only water realms, Hyperdrift Tech has huge instant win advantages in the water, warped, and pipeline realms. We didn't see Reverb moving behind Hyper Power Rage. Sorry to all you Reverb fans, but when you compare the two, Reverb has one less realm advantage in instant win than Hyper Power Rage, both of those occurring in the Monument realm. Otherwise, these two cars are pretty even across the board, with each being able to beat the other in 5 realms or tie in every other realm. But cheer up, because Hyper Reverb actually gains a position over Synchro, as Hyper's 2 unique instant wins just barely push it over Synchro's 6 realm advantages. Everything else remains the same, as Hyper Chicane and Hyper Synchro take the top spots. These speed demons are some of the best cars in the game, and it's pretty tough to defeat them. And similarly with Hyper Reverb, as you'll see, each one of these is a race car, which is much more critical down the line when we examine all 86 vehicles. So next up is the Silencers, and we'll see how they stack up compared to the rest. Look forward to it.